It was supposed to be just another night of teenage freedom. For Jack, it was his very first real party. The kind of night he thought he would never forget, and he was right, but not for the reasons he imagined. Inside the old farmhouse, the music shook the walls like a second heartbeat. Laughter mixed with the thud of footsteps as 30 kids crammed into the living room, sweating, drinking, and dancing like the night could never end. The air smelled of beer, smoke, and youth tried to outrun responsibility. Jack leaned against the wall, watching the chaos unfold. He felt both excited and uneasy. For the first time, there were no parents watching, no rules, just him, the music, and the thrill of being free. But as he glanced out the window, a strange feeling crept over him. The moon hung low over the fields, silver light crawling across the grass. Beyond the glow, the dark wood seemed to breathe. Shadows swayed, not with the wind, but with something heavier, something alive. Jack shivered, though he couldn't say why. And then the sound came. At first, he thought it was just the bass from the speakers rattling the floorboards. But no, it was deeper, heavier. An engine, not the smooth hum of a car pulling in, but a guttural growl, low and unnatural, like metal straining against itself. The music seemed to fade as the sound grew louder. One by one, voices trailed off, heads turned toward the door. The laughter died, replaced by uneasy silence. A girl laughed nervously. Who the hell drives out here at this hour? Jack felt his chest tighten. Curiosity was buzzing through the room, but beneath it lay something else. Fear. Someone shouted, "Go check it out." And a group of boys stumbled toward the porch, too hyped up on adrenaline and alcohol to think twice. Jack followed, Emily trailing beside him, her bright smile now dim with uncertainty. The night air hit him like ice. The world outside felt different, too still, too quiet. At the end of the gravel driveway sat an old, colorless car. No headlights, no movement, just that low hum, rumbling from inside its chest like the snarl of some sleeping beast. "Who drives a car like that?" one of the boys whispered. Jack didn't answer. His eyes locked on the vehicle. Something inside him screamed to stay away. And then the car door creaked open. A figure stepped out, swallowed by a shadow. The shape was human, but wrong. Its movements were too slow, too deliberate, as if each step carried a weight no one else could see. A hood covered its face, but Jack could feel the force of its presence pressing against him. "Let's go back inside," Jack muttered, trying to sound casual, but his voice betrayed him. No one moved. They stood frozen, caught between dread and fascination. Then the figure raised a hand. Jack's body lurched forward, as though invisible strings were pulling him closer. His breath caught. Around him, others shifted too, their feet dragging unwillingly toward the figure. It was like the air had thickened, gravity itself tilting in the stranger's favor. Emily's voice broke the silence. "Hey, who are you?" Her words trembled, but they cracked the stillness like glass. The figure paused, lowering its hand. And then it lunged. Chaos exploded. Screams tore through the night as kids stumbled and shoved each other, sprinting for the safety of the farmhouse. Jack grabbed Emily's hand and ran, his heart slamming against his ribs. But in the frenzy, he heard a voice, Derek's. "Help!" Jack turned. Derek was on the ground, clawing at the dirt as the figure dragged him toward the waiting car. His eyes were wide with terror, his voice raw with desperation. Without thinking, Jack let go of Emily. "Stay here," he shouted. He sprinted toward the struggle, adrenaline fueling his every step. He grabbed the back of Derek's shirt and pulled with everything he had. "Let him go." Jack screamed. The hood slipped from the figure's head. Jack froze. The face staring back at him wasn't human. It was twisted, stretched, a mask of despair and rage. Its eyes were voids, black and endless, like the reflection of nothingness itself. Jack's strength faltered. For a second, he nearly let go, but then Derek screamed again, and Jack snapped back with a final, desperate pull. He yanked Derek free. They tumbled to the ground, rolling across the gravel. The others were shouting, waving frantically from the farmhouse porch. But the figure wasn't done. It stepped closer, the darkness around it bending, swallowing what little light the moon provided. That unnatural pull gripped Jack again, stronger now, almost suffocating. "Run!" he yelled, forcing his body upright. He grabbed Derek and bolted. Together, they sprinted back to the farmhouse, the door slamming shut behind them just as the figure reached the porch. The pounding began. Heavy, deliberate thuds against the walls. Footsteps circled the house, the sound of something or someone testing every weakness. "Call the police," someone shouted. Jack's hands shook as he pulled out his phone, but when he dialed, nothing. No connection. Just silence, as if the farmhouse itself had been cut off from the world. A cold dread seeped through him. The stories were true. The whispers about the cult, the strange disappearances, the shadows in the woods. They weren't just rumors. They were being hunted. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the pounding stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise. Jack crept toward the window, his breath shallow. The driveway was empty. The car was gone. The figure had vanished into the night. But the feeling remained. That suffocating presence, that pull, lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. The party never resumed. The music stayed off. The laughter never returned. Instead, they sat in silence, eyes darting to every shadow, waiting for the sound of that engine to return. Derek sat pale and trembling, his hands still shaking from the grip that nearly dragged him into the dark. Emily leaned against Jack, her smile gone, replaced by a look of quiet fear. Jack stared out the window one last time, the moonlight casting long, sharp shadows across the field. They had escaped, for now, but the fear, that would never leave. It was supposed to be a night of freedom. Instead, it became a night etched into their memories, a reminder of how quickly the darkness can find you, even when you're surrounded by laughter. And as the farmhouse fell into uneasy silence, Jack knew one thing for certain. Whatever had come for them wasn't finished. The music thumped against the walls, each bass beat rattling the loose window panes of the old farmhouse. Inside, the air buzzed with excitement. Laughter, shouts, and the chaotic chatter of teenagers filled the cramped, dimly lit rooms. The smell of smoke and cheap beer mixed with the faint mustiness of old wood, the kind of smell that clings to buildings long past their prime. Sarah was only 16, but tonight, standing among her friends in this forgotten house on the edge of town, she felt invincible. Her best friend Lily was at her side, a drink in one hand, her grin wide and fearless. The whole thing, the music, the people, the freedom, it was intoxicating. For a moment, Sarah forgot about everything else. The stress from school, her parents constantly watching her, the quiet loneliness she sometimes felt. It all melted away under the glow of string lights stapled haphazardly along the farmhouse beams. But outside, the night was different. Through the window, Sarah could see the field stretching endlessly in all directions. The moon hung low and bright, silver beams cutting across the land. It should have been beautiful, but instead, it felt wrong. The isolation was thrilling at first. No adults, no neighbors to call the cops on them. But now, with the alcohol warming her system and the noise of the party blurring around her, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't as alone as they thought. Still, she brushed it off. Back inside, Lily had wrangled a group of kids into a game of truth or dare. They gathered in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor, their faces flushed with laughter. "Dare!" Lily shouted boldly, grinning from ear to ear. Sarah laughed. That was Lily, always fearless, always pushing boundaries. She admired her best friend's confidence, even if sometimes it got them into trouble. But as Sarah smiled, her gaze drifted again to the window, and that's when she noticed it. A sound, faint at first, then louder, the growl of an engine. not the casual hum of a car pulling up to join the party. This was deeper, harsher, a sound that didn't belong in the still countryside. Her heart skipped. "Did anyone else hear that?" she asked, her voice almost drowned out by the chatter. But her friends barely looked up, too wrapped up in the game, too distracted to notice the low rumble vibrating the air. Sarah pushed herself up and moved closer to the window, and there it was. At the end of the gravel driveway sat a car, black, boxy. Its headlights burned through the darkness like twin eyes watching them. Something about it was wrong. The shape, the way it idled in place. It wasn't like any car she'd ever seen around here. Her breath caught in her throat. "Is anyone else seeing this?" she asked again, louder this time. A few kids glanced outside, shrugged, and went back to their drinks. But Sarah couldn't tear her eyes away. And then, the driver's side door creaked open. At first, nothing. Just a hollow echo of metal against the night. Then a figure stepped out. Tall, cloaked in shadow, its face hidden. It stood there unerringly still, like it wasn't a person at all, but some kind of mannequin propped against the night sky. Sarah's stomach twisted. "Sarah, come on." Lily's voice pulled her back. Her best friend was motioning for her to sit back down, to laugh, to play. But Sarah couldn't move. That figure, the way it stood, the way it seemed to be staring, it wasn't right. And as quickly as it appeared, it began to walk, slowly, purposefully, towards a farmhouse. Sarah's pulse hammered in her ears. What would you have done? Stayed quiet and hoped it went away? Or shouted for everyone to run? Sarah did neither. She froze. Back inside, the game rolled on. Laughter echoed, a sharp contrast to the growing dread that pressed down on Sarah's chest. When someone dared Lily to go outside and check the car, Sarah's heart dropped into her stomach. "No, don't do it." Sarah's voice cracked, panic bleeding into her tone. The room went quiet. Dozens of eyes turned to her. Lily frowned. "It's just a car, Sarah. You're being paranoid." Paranoid. That word stung. But Sarah knew what she had seen. That figure. That knife glinting in its hand. "Please," she whispered, grabbing Lily's arm. "Don't go out there." But Lily pulled free with a laugh. "I'm not scared of some random car. Watch this." And before Sarah could stop her, Lily was marching toward the door. The night hit them like a wall. Cold, heavy, silent except for the fading rumble of the engine. The car loomed at the edge of the driveway. The figure stood beside it now, waiting. Sarah's breath fogged in the air as she stepped after Lily. Her chest tightened with every step, dread screaming louder than the music still thumping faintly inside. And then it happened. The man moved. 1 second he was standing still. The next he lunged. His hand shot out, clamping around Lily's arm like a vice. The world slowed. Sarah's heart stopped. Lily's scream tore through the night, raw and desperate. Help! Sarah didn't think. She just reacted. She grabbed a rock from the ground and swung. Hard. It connected with a sickening thud. The man stumbled, releasing Lily for just a second, long enough for her to pull free and stagger back. But the man wasn't done. His head snapped towards Sarah, and in the glow of the farmhouse lights, she saw his face. Hollow eyes, a twisted grin, the kind of face that doesn't leave you. He lunged again, this time for Sarah. His grip locked around her wrist. It felt like iron, unyielding, inhuman. "Run!" Sarah screamed at Lily, shoving her backward. Lily bolted for the door, vanishing into the chaos inside. But Sarah was still caught. Her heart raced, her breath shallow. Adrenaline surged as she kicked, fought, anything to break free. Finally, her foot connected with his knee. The man grunted, stumbling just enough for her to tear loose. She ran. Her legs burned as she sprinted for the house, every step pounding in rhythm with her pulse. Behind her, she heard footsteps, heavy, relentless. She crashed through the door, screaming for everyone to get out. The party dissolved into chaos. Drinks spilled, furniture toppled, kids scrambled over each other in blind panic. And then the door slammed open. He was there, framed in the doorway, his hollow eyes scanning the room. What followed was madness. Screams, shouts, people pushing, shoving, clawing their way toward the back exit. Sarah stood frozen, watching him step into the room. The light revealed more now. His clothes were old, torn, stained with something dark. His grin never wavered. He lunged for her again, but this time, someone tackled him. A boy from school, fueled by pure adrenaline, slammed into the man with all his weight. The struggle was brutal. Fists, kicks, a blur of movement and rage. Sarah couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. And then, sirens, red and blue lights flashing through the window. The police arrived in a storm of shouting, weapons drawn. The man was dragged down, pinned, his twisted grin still etched across his face. Relief crashed over Sarah, but it was sharp, bitter, because as the sirens wailed and her friends clung to each other, trembling and pale, Sarah realized something. They had survived, but something had changed. The night was over, but the shadow of it, the face, the grip, the way it felt like he had been waiting for them, that would never fade. And here's the thing, that farmhouse, it wasn't random. Years later, Sarah learned what no one had told them. That old house had a history, a dark one, and maybe, just maybe, that man hadn't been looking for anyone. Maybe he had been looking for them. So, what do you think? If you were Sarah, would you have gone outside? Or would you have stayed inside and ignored the car? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. I never believed in haunted houses or haunted farms, but that was before I stayed at the farmhouse in Ridge Hollow, a place that looked like it had been swallowed by time itself. You see, most people drive past it without even noticing. It's set back off the road, hidden behind rows of skeletal trees, the kind that scrape against the wind like bony fingers. The paint on the siding had peeled to bare with decades ago. The windows sagged inward, cloudy and grimy like tired old eyes. When my uncle passed away, I inherited it. A farmhouse I never knew existed. My mother never mentioned it. And when the lawyer read his will, she just shifted uncomfortably in her seat and told me, it would be better if you sold it right away. But something about the way she said it, her tone, the way she avoided looking me in the eyes, made me hesitate. And so, against her wishes, I went. It was early autumn when I pulled my car into the long dirt drive. The fields were nothing but brittle weeds now, patches of brown grass twisting in the wind. The barn stood slouched to one side like it was exhausted, roof caved in, doors hanging wide open. The house loomed ahead. At first glance, it didn't feel haunted, just forgotten, abandoned, a place where time had run out long ago. But the second I stepped out of the car, the air felt different. Heavy, thick, like I had crossed some invisible boundary. I swear to you, every bird in the trees stopped singing. I carried my bag up the creaking porch steps, tested the door, and it gave way with a long, aching groan. The smell hit me first. Old wood, dust, dampness, and something else. Something faint but rotten, like meat that had been left in the sun too long. I told myself it was just a dead mouse on the walls. That was easier to believe. Inside, everything was exactly how someone had left it 50, maybe 60 years ago. Furniture still in place. A cracked mirror over the fireplace. Yellowed lace curtains framing the windows. And on the wall, faded family portraits. Faces I didn't recognize. But in each one, there was something wrong. The father's eyes were too dark, too shadowed. The mother's face too pale, her lips pressed tight. And the children, God, the children never smiled. I set up a sleeping bag in what must have been the parlor. No way was I going upstairs that first night. The stairs sagged, and I didn't trust the floorboards. As night fell, the silence grew thicker. Out there in the country, there are no cars, no hum of electricity, just crickets and the wind. But around midnight, the crickets stopped, and I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, pacing the floor above me. I froze in my bag, staring at the ceiling. Dust rained down from the boards. My mind tried to explain it away. Raccoons, maybe? Or the wood settling. But the steps kept going, back and forth. Deliberate, measured. Finally, I whispered out loud, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I stayed awake until dawn, not daring to close my eyes. I should have left then. Packed up, driven home. Sold the place like my mom told me. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I started exploring. The kitchen was untouched, cupboards full of dusty dishes, glasses cloudy with age. The pantry door was nailed shut with wooden boards, like someone wanted it sealed. I found myself in the dining room, where a long oak table stretched across the space. Plates still sat on it. Forks, knives, all coated in dust, like a family dinner had been abandoned mid-bite. That's when I saw the high chair at the end of the table, and the dried stains on the tray. Dark, rust-colored. I told myself it was food, sauce, anything but what it looked like. That afternoon, I ventured to the barn. The door swung open with a scream of rusted hinges. Inside, dust motes floated in the shafts of sunlight. Old tools hung on the walls. Sides, hooks, chains, and in the corner, something covered in a sheet. I pulled it back. It was a cradle, small, wooden, rocking gently as if stirred by a breeze. But the air was still. That's when I heard it, a baby crying. Soft at first, like it was far away, then louder, closer, echoing through the barn until it was bouncing off the walls. I stumbled backward, tripping over a rusted plow, my heart hammering in my chest. And then silence. The cradle had stopped moving. That night was worse. The footsteps came back, louder. This time, I heard whispers with them, low voices, words I couldn't understand. And then something else, the sound of a baby crying again. But this time, it wasn't in the barn. It was inside the house. I pulled the covers over my head, trembling like a child. And I swear to you, I felt the air shift, like someone had walked into the room. I peeked out, and in the faint moonlight, I saw it, a figure, small, standing by the fireplace. A child, its face pale, hollow-eyed. It tilted its head at me, and then it was gone. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove into town to the small library, asked about the farmhouse. The old librarian gave me a look, like she knew. She didn't even need me to finish the address. That was the Mercer place, she said. Terrible tragedy. They were one of the first families here. But something happened. They say the father lost his mind, locked the children inside. Neighbors heard screams, but by the time anyone came, the whole family was gone. No bodies were ever found, just blood everywhere. I asked her if the house was haunted. She didn't answer. She just told me some places remember. I should have left right then, but I didn't. That night, the house came alive. It started with footsteps again, then doors slamming, whispers rising into screams, the sound of chairs dragging across the floor, and then the crying, the baby. Only this time it was deafening, coming from upstairs. Against every instinct, I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the stairs. Each step groaned under my weight. The hallway stretched before me, lined with doors. The crying grew louder. I followed it to the last door on the left. My hand shook as I turned the knob. Inside was a nursery, toys scattered on the floor, a rocking chair swaying back and forth. And in the crib, something moved. I stepped closer, hard in my throat, and then I saw it. Not a baby, but something else. Something black, writhing, with too many limbs, too many eyes. It turned toward me, and the crying twisted into a screech. The walls bled, the floor buckled, and I swear to you, I heard the voices of the children screaming, begging me to leave. I dropped the flashlight and ran. Down the stairs, out the door, into the night. I never went back. The farmhouse still stands there, rotting, waiting. But sometimes when I drive past Ridge Hollow, I swear I see shapes in the windows. Children, watching. And sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I still hear it. That baby crying, calling me back. If you ever find yourself on that back road and you see the old farmhouse set behind the trees, don't stop. Don't look inside. Because once you hear the crying, you'll never forget it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget, there are plenty more waiting for you in the dark. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next nightmare. And remember, sometimes the scariest places aren't abandoned at all. They're just waiting for you. Sleep well if you can. Stay safe out there, my friends.